Good morning and greetings from Alberta. You know, I was watching the CBC there, and I noticed that they sure seem to talk about Alberta a lot. So what I did is I went to cbc.ca, their main website, and you can type in their search bar whatever you want, and it'll tell you how many times an issue or a keyword has been mentioned on the CBC across all of their material. And I made a few comments online there that I said it sure seems like Alberta gets a lot of stories directed at them from the CBC. So I wanted to look into it. So what I did is I went to the CBC website and I typed in all kinds of search words to see what they talked about the most. And you can do the same. So what I did with these numbers is I just kind of rounded them up or down a bit to make it easy on the eyes. So these are ballpark numbers, but they are the numbers from the CBC website. So I guess just to start it off, what got me looking at this was I know that British Columbia every year has more fires than Alberta, but it seems like Alberta is the focus. It seems almost as if it's targeted. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but sure seems that way. But the numbers don't lie. So if you go to the CBC website and you type in BC fire, 4,400 mentions come up. If you go and type in Alberta fire, 9,600 mentions come up. So if you were to go look at stats, every year BC has hundreds of more fires than Alberta. And they have a larger population. If anyone wants to say, oh, people talk about different regions, you know, of course, Ontario gets talked about more than, say, Prince Edward Island, right? It's the way it is. It goes by population. But in a place where BC has hundreds of more fires every year and has a larger population, Alberta fires are mentioned on the CBC over 5,000 more times. And I looked at the total mentions on CBC for Alberta are 139,000. For British Columbia, it's 132,000. So Alberta is mentioned on the CBC 7,000 more times in total, just the word Alberta. Now, BC has a bigger population. They should have more stuff going on. I don't know. You take the numbers and the information however you like. But I also looked at other things, just to see what CBC was promoting the most or what they talked about the most. And as you can see, racism was mentioned 15,000 times. Poverty was mentioned 11,000 times. LGBTQ, and I have no issue with anybody. All these topics are currently being forced upon us, and I'm just showing how much the media talks about different ones or not. LGBTQ was mentioned 7,000 times. The word COVID was mentioned 128,000 times. So I want you to think about that. In the total existence of CBC, they have mentioned poverty 11,000 times. They mentioned COVID 128,000 times. COVID vaccine itself was 28,000. So the CBC spoke about the COVID vaccine more than poverty and a host of other issues combined. what I found amazing was things like homelessness was mentioned 11,000 times. Food banks, 11,000 times. Uh, Gender identity, 3,700 times. What else do we have here? Child abuse was mentioned 6,000 times. Child poverty, 2,400 times. So something as recent as this gender identity stuff, that's regardless of what side you're on, but the CBC has mentioned gender identity over 1,000 times more than child poverty in Canada. Let's see here. Reading level was mentioned 1,600 times. Ukraine, 28,000 times the Ukraine has been mentioned on the CBC. The same amount as the COVID vaccine, roughly. So child abuse, child poverty, homelessness, food banks, all these search terms combined are thousands of mentions less than the vaccine and the Ukraine together. If you add in just COVID in general, they mentioned COVID more on the CBC than all of these significant issues in Canada. Here's a good one. Water advisory. These are the boil water advisories that are around our country, and I think it's an embarrassment. You know, it's 2024, and we have communities in Canada that don't even have fresh water. But yet we're sending billions of dollars to war zones while Canadians struggle to pay their bills and buy food. One of the most famous ones, that's when Trudeau, some protesters snuck into that Liberal dinner where they had to purchase a ticket or purchase a dinner, and they mentioned Grassy Narrows. That's the community in Northern Ontario where they have the mercury poisoning in their water. Grassy Narrows has been mentioned 595 times. And these are Canadians in our biggest province having mercury poisoning from water. And those 595 times are not all about that. There's other stories too. So when you type in Grassy Narrows mercury, you get like 300 and something stories. So we have Canadians suffering, and the CBC has mentioned gender identity thousands of more times than Grassy Narrows. You know, we're talking about such a small segment of society that is pushed upon us by the media. What else here? If you go and type in the word corruption, it comes up 4,600 times on the CBC. If you type in the word transgender, again, no issue, do whatever you want, just be an adult, leave the kids alone. But if you type in transgender, you get 7,900 mentions. So our national broadcaster, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, supposed to be our national news, have spoken about corruption in our government. And you know the corruption on the CBC is going to be both conservative and liberal. They're not just talking about liberals. So the CBC has mentioned the word transgender almost 8,000 times, and the word corruption 4,000 times. And it's supposed to be journalists' job to keep the government in check and to keep them accountable. Doesn't look like they are to me. I just got a couple here more just for fun. If you type in far right on CBC, you get 17,500 mentions. If you type in far left, you get 8,900 mentions. So the CBC has mentioned far right almost 20,000 times, and double what they say for far right, or sorry, far left. And I don't know about you, but seeing what's going on at the various protests and stuff, they can call people whatever they want, but it doesn't seem to be the folks on the right side of things, the conservative-minded folks, who are the violent ones. In North America, it wasn't a bunch of conservatives, burning down cities and pulling down statues and screaming in people's faces. The government got all worried about people playing street hockey and dancing and jumping up and down in bouncy castles. So I really just was bored, and I wanted to go see basically the bias of the CBC, and it's here for display. I mean, this is not my opinion. These are the numbers. We are distracted with a lot of information, and I don't think that the CBC is doing good for Canadians. They used to. They used to connect us. For a lot of regions in Canada, all they had was CBC radio. But I think they've outlived their usefulness, and they're certainly not worth over $1 billion a year when COVID alone is talked more about than all kinds of serious problems and issues that Canadians are dealing with. It's actually sad. It's sad to see these numbers. But to end on this, just for fun, if you go on the CBC website and you type in Trump, you get about 70,000 mentions. If you type in Trudeau, you get 72,000 mentions. So that means that they've almost talked as much about a foreign leader than they have about everything related to Trudeau. And that's his famous family, his dad being a prime minister, his mother, his brother, him, all the stories throughout their lives of growing up, whatever stories CBC would have done about the Trudeaus, it's almost equal to Trump. How is that even possible? If you narrow it down and actually type in Donald Trump, it's about 31,000. If you type in Justin Trudeau, it's 33,000. So just remember that Trudeau was elected a year before Trump. Trudeau's Canadian. Trudeau is our prime minister. And they almost talked about Donald Trump in a completely different country that we can't even vote for as much as the prime minister throughout his entire life in the media. So, this video won't change nothing, but for the few folks that make stupid comments when I say anything against the CBC, check it out for yourself. Have a great day, guys. Take care.